Bullying is dead wrong. Our society is emblazoned with violence every day, much from children growing up in families where their parents were yelling at one another or they didn't raise their children with a firm but loving hand. Of course, it's easy to blame whatever we want on our parents, but there are other circumstances which are at least equal to how children were raised and responsible for much of the bullying that occurs in 90% of children in grades 4 through 8. Now, we can look at bullying in categories, and any form is not acceptable, whether it is mental or emotional, cyber or social media, and the most physically violent of the group. This is mainly about the physical, but it encompasses all facets. The mission is to educate parents and children that bullying is wrong in any category, and there are definite patterns that children and parents can isolate and become advocates of anti-bullying. No one person can make a dent in an epidemic which continues to grow and thrive at an alarming rate, but together, we can make a difference for the better. Our hope is the following little story will get you to see just how important supporting anti-bullying is. The life you save may be literally your own. Johnny was a typical 13-year-old boy who liked playing baseball, football, and basketball, with football his favorite, though he was small for his age. Johnny went to West Larsonville High and just started the 8th grade. The school had almost 800 students. There was one in particular that Johnny despised. His name was Ken. Ken was always threatening to beat him up, though he had no good reason to. "Hey, Spud." That's the name Ken always called Johnny, while saying he was dumb as a potato head and then punching him in the arm and shoulder. Johnny had some learning problems, but he was normal for the most part. Johnny's friend Gail was always telling him he was lucky Ken didn't hit him in the mouth. That wasn't amusing to him, but Gail got a chuckle. It was bad enough being called stupid. "Gee, Gail, that is really kind of you," said Johnny with a wonder-why look in his eyes. The reason Johnny hated school with a passion was primarily because of Ken. Johnny had a little circle of friends, and they too were being bullied, although Jimmy and Ted were bullied more by talk than fists. None of it was good. His school had teachers that seemed to turn the other cheek when they saw a kid being picked on. Even though he and his mother talked to the school's principal, his mom said it did little good. It was, in their opinion, "That's the way kids are, and they will outgrow this," said his homeroom teacher, Mrs. Winchell. Luckily for Johnny and many other kids picked on, their school had a special guest slated to come in and talk about bullies. He was so excited and couldn't wait to see this person. They had no clue who the person was, but there was an air of excitement with Johnny and some of his schoolmates. Jimmy, Ted, Gail, and Johnny were betting who the speaker would be. They each put $1 up, and winner take all. Sure, it's not much money, but the bragging rights were good for a day or two. The school had a policeman last year who was talking about safety in the home and guns. It was a needed topic, but it didn't pertain directly to Johnny. "Johnny, I think I know who it is," said Gail, a dark-haired, green-eyed girl who wore old-fashioned glasses. "Spill it, girl," he said, thinking Gail had the in on the special guest. "All right, but keep it to yourself." He readily agreed with his female friend. "It's an expert on bullying, or rather how to deal with a bully." Johnny was waiting for a name. "Johnny, she teaches a class, and she's also a television star with a syndicated show." "Well, I still don't have a name," he said. It didn't excite the boy one bit, and he didn't mean to be biased, but a girl was not going to put any fear into bullying. At least that was his opinion. The speaker was due to talk in 5 days, and little did they know who the real guest was. Gail was about to get a big surprise.
Each school day, Johnny would get up in the morning dreading going the 6-block walk to his punishment, as he was prone to call it. "That darn Gail. I think she's pulling a fast one on me again. She did this in another bet just to get me to bite. Gets you excited to hear the guest and a nobody we ever heard of walks in. Last year she said an athlete from our area was the guest, but she was wrong, said Johnny. Truth be told, they very much needed a speaker on anti-bullying, but who will kids believe in? Who will they look up to? And maybe the biggest question of them all, who will live up to the first two questions and really get the message across? Johnny had this talk with his parents when they asked why he keeps getting picked on. His folks were always talking about how years ago they didn't have it so bad. Many believe the internet is responsible for much of the cyber and social media bullying, and a good deal of mental bullying thrown in. No one can punch you on social media or cyberspace, but they can still make you feel depressed and downright sad by what they write. Johnny continued to say, "My mom and dad say the darn internet has made cripples out of kids because they have nowhere else to get rid of their frustrations. The vast majority of 12 and 13-year-olds are playing games online or ripping the kids in their class." That Johnny could vouch for by the bruises on his arms and shoulders. Speaking of bruises, here it comes. "Which arm hurts the most, Spudhead?" said the overgrown, bulky, brown-haired boy. Ken was over 6 feet and 200 pounds and was only 13 years old. "Get lost, Ken. Can't you leave me alone?" Johnny pleaded. "I'll ask again, then I'll punch you in both arms." Okay. My left hurts from yesterday. Satisfied?" said Johnny. "Yup, then left it is." "You rotten SOB, you ask which one and then you hit me there." "Listen good, Johnny boy, you little spud man. I can hit you whenever I want and there's nothing you can do about it." The stunned boy sighed because he was right. Who was going to help him in school when no one ever does? Heck, his other friends are in the same predicament as he, including Gail. Gail has a female bully constantly cursing her out for the glasses she wears and then pulls her hair, Gail told Johnny. "That dumb girl doesn't know my problem and probably could care less. I need my special-made glasses to see because I was born with a strange and rare retina disorder of sorts. This bimbo pulls my hair and taunts me for it. It makes me sick," said Gail, with a downcast look on her face.
Sometimes after school, Gail, Ted, Jimmy, Pete, and Johnny would meet at the library around the corner and grab a soda from the vending machine. They would sit down and talk about the day. Of course, the biggest topic with them was what they faced with their bully classmates. Pete was a cool kid who played baseball and was a very good outfielder on the school team. He was the only one of this group who didn't get bullied. With a powerful right arm, bullies are afraid to get into any fight with Pete. "You know, guys and Gail, if you would try ignoring them, maybe they wouldn't bother you," said the one with confidence. Gail said to Pete, "You know, if I played and starred on a team, I would feel pretty brave too. I mean, Pete, you would have the other players on your side if anyone was stupid enough to mess with you." "Sorry, Gail, but that's not the reason. I won't take any back talk from any of the kids in this school, and I let them know in my mannerisms." Pete went on to explain how he carried himself when he walks and talks. The kids all nodded, but still believed it was because of his being a top player on a sports team. Ted said to Pete, "Listen, Mr. Baseball, no matter how you walk, you can't disguise the fact that you are black." Pete had no answer for Ted. No one did.
There was a buzz in the air, and Johnny's little group was very excited that someone who was knowledgeable on anti-bullying was coming to their school. That was everyone but the bullies. Ken, Johnny's personal bully, or it sure seemed that way to him, was bragging how he would tell this so-called expert a thing or two. No one said a girl was the guest speaker. "Well, I guess we'll find out, won't we?" Johnny said, as if he had some confidence the guest could beat up Ken or maybe just shut him down a little. Secretly, he knew it was going to take someone really good at dealing with bullies before Ken would listen. What chance was a girl going to put fear in any bully? How would their school ever find someone like that? "Look, Johnny, Whoever they bring in will be a wuss, you know. Probably a mouthpiece to appease the little gutless wimps like you, Ted, Jimmy, and a couple others that you know, and the rest of the school losers. Oh, I forgot. The queen of the losers, Gail. Have to tell you, Ken, one of these days, you'll meet your match, and I just hope I'm there to see it. Johnny was trying to regain some confidence. The mean kid hit him again on his left shoulder, the one that hurt the most. Johnny's finished lunch, and as usual, his little gang talked about why no one seemed to care if they were bullied or not. Yesterday, he handed in his schoolwork, and they were going to have a test on what they had learned. It would not be pretty because his grades were falling fast, and it had a lot to do with Ken and a couple other kids. Ken bullied Johnny physically, but some other kids were just as cruel to him mentally. They both hurt the youngster. One of Johnny's friends, Jimmy, was constantly reading books on anti-bullying and watching different television shows that talk about a very real problem, but again, nothing has changed. As Jimmy liked to point out, the geniuses that write books on anti-bullying are men and women with college degrees and other awards, but did they understand what is really going on in the mind of a kid being bullied? Gail said to Jimmy she read about how a bully sees a weakness in a kid and wants to exploit that which will make the bully feel good that their own weaknesses are not exploited. It was a little confusing to listen to Gail, but Johnny got the basis of her explanation. After all your readings and theories, Gail, we still have not been able to make a dent in this. That is what's so infuriating. She agreed with Johnny with a shrug of her shoulders.
When the movie Bully was released, Johnny's friends watched it and were shocked by some of the things in the movie. What the movie meant to achieve may have had some effect on some kids, but he didn't see any change in his experience, at least at West Larsonville High. They even saw how Boston is experimenting with a technique for stopping bullying that was very successful in Norway. A long story short, 3 boys committed suicide after being unmercifully bullied. When Johnny read the story, it tore him to pieces. He vowed that someday he would help to make a difference, but had no idea how he would. It was a Saturday, and the teenager needed a little money to go to the movies with his buddies. He was not old enough to have a steady job, and of course he could not drive a car. But Johnny had a little trophy he got for rolling a bowling score of 187. There was a little shop near him, so he walked over and spoke to a cool guy. His name was Bill, and he knew a lot about stuff like paper money and coins. And he gave the happy boy $10 for his little trophy, and Johnny thought it was because Bill felt sorry for him. His parents gave Johnny a small allowance, but he didn't have enough before to go to a movie with his friends. Johnny was telling Bill about bullies in his school, and Bill said it was so sad. Johnny, I was a manager of professional fighters, and I know one in particular that would be a great man to teach others about anti-bullying. I think he would even talk to kids at your school, said Bill from behind his counter. Man, Bill, that would be so cool. If we could meet somebody like that, maybe it would make a little difference. But my school already has their own list of speakers, said the smiling boy. Johnny thanked Bill for paying him for the trophy and headed home. Funny, it didn't dawn on Johnny until he got home, but Bill was wearing a dark blue t-shirt that said, "Firefighters Against Bullies." He had no clue what that was about, but the shirt was sharp looking. When Johnny got on his computer, he looked up Firefighters Against Bullies. He called Gail, Jimmy, and Ted and told them to check out their website. He could hardly wait to hear what they had to say. It was the following day when they got together near the library that Johnny was to hear their reaction to Firefighters Against Bullies. Jimmy spoke first. Johnny, I like what they do, but how does it help any of us? Jimmy looked at Johnny and Gail and then Ted. He was speechless and didn't have an answer right then and there. Gail countered with, "You guys are missing the point. It is not always important that it pertains directly to you or us. It matters to kids that are bullied so bad they need a safe place to go to." all of a sudden the bells in Johnny's head were going off. "Son of a gun, Gale, you hit the nail on the head," said Johnny. "All of us are feeling sorry for ourselves that we're being picked on, but we all have a home to go for safety when not in school. There's many kids that were bullied much more than us, and they have no safe haven." Though there were a couple kids in Johnny's school that did get beat up bad, and a safe place to go for them would have been a big help. The two who were hurt so bad, their families moved to another area. And that was great, but Johnny thought not all families can afford to move that quickly. Jimmy and Ted joined in. "You know, guys, we are looking at it from only our standpoint. What if we joined a cause that would get the word out to every kid? We could do a lot of good," said Jimmy. "Absolutely," said Ted. "Plus, it's important to get the message to parents." For the first time in a while, Johnny forgot about Ken punching his arm and started thinking about how together they could all put a dent in bullying once and for all. Gale, Ted, Jimmy, Ray, and Johnny's other friend Sam said they were ready to put their own issues aside and fight for kids who were bullied. That day they all walked into Bill's store and said they wanted to join. "Well, that's very noble of you all, but we need to find out what you can do for this cause. By the way, where do you go to school?" Gale was the first to tell Bill, "We all go to West Larsonville." "Oh, that's a good school." "You wouldn't say that if you went there," said Ted. "Oh yeah, Johnny told me about the bullies you have. I wish I could do something for you guys, but you already have a guest speaker, correct?" Again, Gale jumped in. "Yes, a television personality is scheduled to talk to us in a couple more days, and the subject is about bullying," said Jimmy, who was the quiet one. "Well, I'm sure you will learn a lot from this person. Do you know their name?" asked Bill. Gale said it was a girl. As soon as Bill heard it was a girl, I could tell he had reservations. "Look, guys, I'm sure this girl knows her stuff, but from my experience, unless she is a martial arts expert or skilled fighter, the bullies will laugh. They may even laugh if she's a great fighter." The kids all had blank stares and walked outside to think what their next move was. After hearing Bill, they all felt doomed. "Look, maybe the girl is Muhammad Ali's daughter," said Gale, but she didn't think that was the case. They knew the great fighter's daughter could probably make an impression, if only based on her dad's reputation and name.
"So Bill, show us how we can help fight bullying," said Johnny. Bill said the only thing he had at the current time was his t-shirts to show support, but he was looking for other things to sell to help fight against bullies. "Bill, just give us another minute to discuss this, alright?" Sam told the fellow with the bright blue shirt. Bill said to take their time. With Bill taking a phone call behind the counter, they walked outside to discuss their issues. "I know what I'm doing, and I'm not going to the movies," Johnny said with his mind made up. They walked back in, and Johnny firmly said, "Do you have something that will fit me?" "Johnny, that is really nice, but you want to go see a movie," said Bill. "Bill, the movie will always be there, but your firefighters against bullies is a much more important cause than one lousy movie," said Johnny. One by one, their little group asked for a size that would fit them, including Gale. It was a sight to see these kids walking down the street proudly displaying a most worthy cause that affects millions of kids. Johnny looked back and Bill had a smile on his face. They had no conception what that smile was really about. Sure, they didn't see a movie, but they looked at each other with pride because they were helping spread the word. As bad luck would have it, as the kids were laughing and just being happy and wearing their shiny blue t-shirts, sporting the Firefighters Against Bullies emblem, who but Ken is right in front of them. "Oh my, look at the losers now! You guys really scare me wearing those rags, gonna beat me with cotton." Bill, who was standing near his door, came over and saw what was happening. "Look, pal, why don't you go and pick on someone your own size?" Ken looked at Bill and said, I was just talking to them, man. Is that a problem?" said Ken. "No, it's not a problem, but I sense from your attitude that you were bothering my friends." We turned and said thanks to Bill, and then we were off.
Today was the day. Around 1 o'clock that afternoon, all the students would be gathered in the school's large auditorium. Johnny found his friends and they decided to sit together. The principal was there on stage and he was talking to a girl who was dressed in jeans and wearing what appeared to be a poncho. She didn't look like any type of martial arts expert, or even a fighter, for that matter, thought Johnny. "Good afternoon, boys and girls," our principal said on his microphone. "We have a special guest today, so please give a warm welcome to Carol Larkins." They all clapped as this lady began talking about bullies and how we need to educate all kids and their parents. Ted, Jimmy, Sam, Gail, and Johnny were starting to realize what a load of crap and waste of time this was. Johnny looked over and saw Ken with a few other bullies scattered around, and they couldn't stop laughing. Carol spoke for another 5 minutes until you could hear a bunch of loudmouths, the bullies, shouting for her to pack up her lipstick and perfume and get off the stage. They were so rude, Johnny wondered why the principal never came back on stage to back her up. Okay, I hear some of you giggling, and I guess you don't feel that this is worthy of your time, and I apologize to all you kids, but before I leave, I want to say one last thing. As Carol Larkins was leaving the stage, she took off her poncho, and I was amazed. She was wearing the same blue t-shirt, Firefighters Against Bullies. There was electricity in the air. In as loud a voice as she could, "Boys and girls, here is my dear friend and world champion Jens Pulver." The standing ovation he received, and I mean everyone was standing and applauding. Johnny's heart was fluttering because of who was standing on the stage. He looked around and Ken and every bully was now on the edge of their seat. Johnny knew every bully respected the extremely gifted expert before them. Besides an incredible fighter, the man was such a giving, caring human being with enormous compassion.
Greetings, West Larsonville High. My name is Jens Pulver, and I am here to tell and teach you that bullying is dead wrong. No one should ever be bullied. Though you may watch myself and many other professionals trying to win the competition, we are entertainers that are paid to do what we do, and I will let you in on a little secret. We hate seeing anyone, especially kids, being bullied. Whether it be mental, social, or physical, it is wrong. In fact, many of the men and women you see on television or the internet were bullied as kids, and that drove them to work hard on their bodies and mind to come back and teach anti-bullying. Besides anti-bullying, we need to teach anxiety and depression. They are all related and each is most harmful. Even I battle with depression and anxiety, and I can tell you, it feels pretty bad because your self-worth is shot. Our biggest hope is that everyone sitting in this auditorium will spread the word that bullying is dead wrong and can lead to many innocent children and adults taking their own lives. I want to prove a point. Are there any bullies in this room who will mind stepping up on stage with me? There was not one that volunteered. Okay, I promise I will not hurt you. I only ask that you show me that you have any guts. Johnny yelled out Ken's name loud enough for Jens to hear. Please, Ken, as that was the only name I heard, please join me on the stage. The room started a chant of, "Ken, Ken, Ken." Reluctantly, he came forward amidst much booing, especially from Johnny's little group. Don't boo him. He deserves applause for coming forward. There was a small smattering of hand claps as Jen reached out his hand to shake hands with Ken. Ken, thinking it was a trick, gradually and gingerly shook Jen's hand. Ken, I only asked you up here to ask a question, and a very serious one. Okay, Mr. Pulver. Go ahead and ask. Ken was actually shivering. Ken, before I do, you were scared of me. I can tell by your body actions. Yes, Mr. Pulver. I am. Why are you afraid of me? Asked Jens. Because you could easily beat me up. Fair enough, Ken, but what would I gain to hurt you? I have no idea. Alright, Ken, this is the question I want you to answer. Judging from the reaction of the kids, you are picking on at least one. So I ask you, if you knew you're bullying a student may cause that child to take his own life, would that make you happy? Immediately, Ken said, I would never want Johnny to kill himself. I didn't realize my actions could cause him to do that. Ken was starting to break down, and Jens put his arm around the kid. It brought a tear to Johnny's eye when he said he didn't want to see him hurt. Just then, Carol came back on stage. Jens and I want to thank your wonderful school for allowing us to show you how important it is to spread the word on anti-bullying. Then Jen spoke. West Larsonville, we are grateful to be here, and I believe we all learned a most valuable lesson. Bullying is dead wrong. When Ken came down from the stage, he walked right up to Johnny and said the sweetest words Johnny had ever heard. Johnny, I'm going to get one of those shirts. Hopefully your friend will let me join Firefighters Against Bullies. A bunch of kids gave him a real round of applause. So began their mission to spread the word. We ask everyone to join us. On behalf of Firefighters Against Bullies and Bullying is Dead Wrong, we thank you.